The strongest ones go in the front.
Yeah.
Really?
And then they take turns. Like one goes behind, and then one goes in front of it.
Have you
like
ever
and then when basically when they notice it's basically going slower, it takes its place. Basically,
somebody else moves to the front.
Yeah.
Kind of to keep the pace.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen, like, either on the side of the road or in a field, big groups of birds and they kind of swarm together? That's kind of like what these locusts are doing. They kind of swell.
They were basically just going in a circle a few days. Like, they were just going in a circle. Like, we just saw a bunch. Like, whoa.
So, like, what was the problem with the locusts?
The problem, well, I think it talks about it right here, so I think we'll hear about that. There are many stories in history about the terrible devastation of locust plagues. A plague is kind of like, almost like a disease, or like when something kind of goes through a community and kind of causes trouble. So locust plagues. It is written that in ancient times, one locust swarm covered 2,000 square miles. So 2,000 square miles would be, I'm not even sure, it would be maybe like close to the state of Kansas, I think. Did you think of that?
No.
Maybe it would be a little smaller than that, but a swarm as big as some states. So a swarm of insects that big. So that's what they said in ancient times. They say that one swarm was that big. The swarms today are not nearly as large as that, but they can still be quite big, often as much as 100 square miles. Imagine so many insects in the sky. So 100 square miles would be kind of like from here to Newton, and then also all the way to, not quite, but maybe all the way to like, have you ever been to Beulah?
Yeah.
So 10 miles in one way, 10 miles in another way. That whole area covered in locusts.
Oh no, that's creepy.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd stay inside. As the locusts migrate in search of food, they ride the winds from one area of rainfall to the next. There is always more food where it rains. They travel on sunny mornings and stop in late afternoons to roost for the night. Do you know what roost means?
Like stay.
Like stay. Stay, rest.
Yeah, typically roost means kind of hunker down, kind of stay in one spot for protection and rest a little bit. When they reach a rainy area, they mate and die. Then their eggs will hatch and a new swarm of locusts begin moving. So they don't even make it all the way to where they're going. They make it a ways, they stop, they mate, they have babies, and then they die, and then their babies keep going.
And their babies keep going to where?
They're looking for...
They're basically...
where
they
looking for areas
So, like, what was
vegetation.
the problem with them?
Well, there were so many of them that there wasn't enough vegetation to feed them. So they're constantly moving to new places to find.
We should have a swarm of locusts, a glass cage with a bunch of locusts.
Hey, what the little stand over there?
It's outside. Don't worry about it. And if the eggs laid are too many, and if there is plenty of food when the new eggs hatch, there will be no locust swarms for a while. Only pale green grasshoppers moving quietly about. But someday too many eggs may be laid, and the newly hatched grasshoppers will be much too hungry. These grasshoppers will begin to look a little different and act a little bit different. So if there is enough vegetation where the eggs are laid,
they won't be locusts.
Then they won't turn into locusts. They'll have enough to eat, and they'll stay on the ground. They'll be grasshoppers. But if they're born, if they're born and there's not enough food to eat, then they start to change color, and then they kind of turn into a locust.
But why do they turn into something else?
Well, probably what happens is as they don't get enough food to eat, it might affect the way they look, and then so they start to. They said they start to turn
grasshoppers.
Yeah, they're kind of still similar to grasshoppers, but we call them something different because they have different characteristics, different things about them. Then they will rise up by the billions as desert locusts and will fly.
Okay.
So locusts, again, are basically the same as grasshoppers, but grasshoppers that don't have enough to eat, so they change into locusts. They start to fly a lot more, and they go a lot farther. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about the caribou. Have you ever seen a caribou? Take a look at that.
I think maybe my grandpa shot an elk. I don't remember if he shot a caribou or not.
My grandpa has shot tons of caribous.
Yeah, and I think caribou are pretty similar to elk. Well, the picture's kind of similar to an elk and kind of similar to a moose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know kind of what the difference between an elk and a moose is?
Mooses, faces are longer and look different. They have
and if you
more
see
they're taller.
And if you look at their antlers, moose antlers are a lot thicker. They're filled in, where elk antlers are a lot more like deer, where they're kind of skinnier. So that's an easier way to tell.
So it's like the caribou is kind of a common.
It looks kind of like one. I'm not really familiar. We don't really have caribou around here. We'll probably figure out where they live.
It's like a mutt.
Kind of
it's
a cross
like
between the two, maybe.
Like,
maybe we can figure out more information on that and learn a little bit about that. Okay. Migrating animals sometimes face many dangers as they travel, and this is especially true for the majestic antlered caribou. These animals spend their summers on the tundra near the cold Arctic Circle, so that means very far north, so probably up in Canada and above. The weather is mild in the summer, which means it's a little bit warmer in the summer, and food good and plentiful in green pastures. So during the summer, the grass grows and they have plenty to eat. However, the caribou cannot stay here long, for they will not survive an Arctic winter. But even migration will not save all of them. So this one's a little bit different. So these caribou are moving because they don't have enough to eat. So they're moving for survival, right?
Kind of like locusts do.
Kind of like locusts do, yeah. But this is, I think, going to tell us more about maybe the dangers that the caribou come across on their migration. Okay.
That one even has points.
That was kind of like 0.6. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this says, while they summer on the tundra, the caribou spend their time alone or in twos or threes. Their days are calm and lazy, and the only real problems they face are flies, which irritate the caribou always moving and keep them always moving. Have you ever seen cows with flies all over them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you ever wonder why there's so many flies on them?
Like my dog, just flies were attacking their ears, and so we had to bring them to the vet.
Animals can't really help. You see a lot of cows, if they have flies on their backs, their tails swing and try to hit the flies because they can't do anything with they don't have really hands or anything, so that's why flies get all over their faces and things, and they can't really protect themselves. Okay, but this peaceful time cannot last. In winter, terrible storms blow across the tundra, making deep layers of ice. The caribou cannot scrape through the thick ice to reach the food they need. If they winter on the tundra, they will surely die of starvation. There's only one choice for them: to travel. A migrating herd is an incredible sight. One herd of caribou can be nearly 200 miles long. So that's kind of hard to think of as well. So if you think of like here to Wichita, and then back, and then maybe to Wichita again, that would be how long the herd of caribou would be.
Maybe even more than that.
So that could be like thousands and thousands of animals all in a herd.
More.
But that's just an average size.
Yeah. It can take the herd weeks and weeks just to pass by the same little tree. So if you're at one point, that herd walking by might keep going for days and days until
because it's so long.
Because the herd is so long, so many animals. And the noise of all the hooves is both frightening and thrilling. We've only got a couple minutes left. Let's see. This is not an easy time for the caribou. The way to the forest is full of risks. There are raging rivers to cross. Some caribou will drown. Lakes may be only partly frozen, and some caribou will fall through the ice, and wolves will follow the herd by day and night. But the herd will go, on the herd will go, nearly 600 miles across the hard landscape. How do the caribou know how to find the forests? Just like the locusts and just like the eels, this remains a mystery. So we're not exactly sure how they know where they're going. A lot like we mentioned the whales, we're not exactly sure, but they always seem to find the forest.
But like us, we know because we have maps and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't.
Yeah, well, maybe caribou. I mean, do we really know what's going on inside their head?
No.
Maybe they know exactly where. Maybe they can smell where they're going, or maybe it's temperatures. We just don't know. We don't have that figured out yet. This says, like other migrating animals, they may sense the Earth's magnetic field, or perhaps the wind tells them, or the shape of the land. So we're not exactly sure. Go ahead and put your shoes on. We're about finished. But the herd never loses its way, and finally the caribou are within the forest they know so well.
Just a second.
Yeah, we're almost finished. But the herd never loses its way, and finally the caribou are within the forest that they know so well. The caribou will not stay in the forest beyond winter, though, for in spring their calves are going to be born, and a forest full of wolves is no place for new babies. So they can't stay there because once they have babies, the wolves will go after the babies because they're weak. Yeah.
Yeah, because
They know they're so weak.
Mm-hmm. Are you supposed to be riding home with them, or?
no.
Okay, sounds good. We're not quite finished yet. We'll finish this page and then we'll be done. So the herd forms again, pregnant females in front, males and younger caribou behind. And now running north, they will leave the wolves and nearly all other living creatures behind as they travel to a place where few can survive, the North Pole. So you can see they're white. A lot of animals that live in the North Pole, like polar bears, are white. Why do you think that is?
Because they want to blend into predators and
Excellent.
stuff.
Do you know what that's called? We've got some here on your backpack.
like
Some camouflage.
Camouflage. They're
Like
camouflaged.
Like that one thing that
Grab a seat for just a second.
where like it is like so it that one kind of rabbit that is like dark in the summer and then white in the
It changes.
like the big furry one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be the same
horseshoe.
thing. They do that so that they can blend into their
Shoeberry rabbit or
surroundings.
the horseshoe?
Hairshue.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're about finished up. Today, you guys did a good job. We talked about migration, and I think Thursday, like I said, we'll do some activities on the iPad. We're going to be talking about hurricanes.
Yes.
Sound good? Okay. Sound good. All right.